Okay, so got a lot to talk about here. We are Tosis lo yifchus abakosis. The Mishnah says that even if you come from the Tamchui, you have an ani over here, still you can't give him less than dalakosis. So the lashon of the Mishnah is lo yifchasu lo abakosis, talking about him. Doesn't say anything about the family, just talks about him. So Tosis medayek from there that mitoch lashon mashma tzas. It says the whole it's not a riot gemura, but at least it's mashma tzas. If the maybe the chatchila ideally everybody will have, but the chiyuv from the balit staka from the gabbai staka to give to a poor family is only going to be a chiyuv to give him, not to give banu b'nei beso. Kiyum la'atzmai, who motzi as kulam b'shalo. He'll be motzi them in dalakosis by his bracha and drinking dalakosis. The svorahu, Tosus holds it's a pashat svora, which the Chora it's connected our svora, but Tosus svorahu. The ma'ishna arbakosis mikiddush to kol hashana she'akan motzi es kulam. What's enough kamina? In other words, manishtana halayla hazeh we call halaylos of kiddush. That every night of kiddush, one person makes. The balabas makes kiddush and motzi everybody else. So here should be no different. Miu. Then he goes on to say that maybe the kiddush, everyone does have their own kos. He brings a duke. He wants to say maybe it's for there is a shtuk of raya, but then he does rayas for carrot that with more in Shabbos, ho saba, that he made kiddush and waited to see what everybody would do. He wasn't sure in the morning, the place that he went, if they make the long kiddush or the short kiddush. He waited to see what there's an older person there to see what he did. So it seems like everybody did have their own kos, but he has a diuk from an Erevin, which is a little bit difficult to know what the diuk is. Just a mushmos over there. Also, they just at the end of the Gemara is that they just bring one kos to somebody. He made a kiddush and shechianu for everybody. So. And also that Hishka Mehan Lavano Levane Beso, the Gemara later on, Kuf Pesel, which we're talking about a lot. There it says, Yatza, Hudashasa Rubidakasa, as long as he drank Rav Kos. So mashma that there Yotze Bishmiya, Tabaina Rubidakasa, that since you need Rav Kos, and the only way Yotze is with Rav Kos, there's only one person over there that has Rav Kos. As long as he drinks Rav Kos, Tosus learns, then he gives everybody else a little bit to drink, but they're not having Rav Kos. So by Stoish, you see that he's really being motzi them, and the Gemara is talking about Dalakosos, not about Kiddush. And there that Gemara is mashma that only he drank Rav Kos, not everybody else. If it would be a din on everybody to drink the kos, then everybody should need Rav Kos, not just him. And you see that you're motzi somebody in Dalakosos. So we saw in the Brisker Rav, he brought Rashem Rav Chaim from his father Rav Chaim to answer up that the Brisker Rav asked that this is very schwer, very difficult. That what's the shaychus between Dalakosos and Kiddush? Kiddush, the Ikar mitzvah is the bracha. We'll see later on. We get to Kuf Vav, get there in a couple of weeks, I'm sure. So we get to Kuf Vav. There we'll see a whole shaila whether or not Kiddush al yayin is deraisa or not. But l'chuli alma, Kiddush itself is deraisa. The shaila is the wine also deraisa. But that's the mitzvah Kiddush. The Ikar, the mitzvah Kiddush, for sure, l'chuli alma is deraisa, is the bracha of Kiddush. And the shtiyas hayayin is to be machshavit, or even if it is deraisa, but it's still secondary to the etzem bracha. So there might be also din yayin deraisa, but the Tosfos is only derabanan the yayin, or maybe it's at a smachta. But the Ikar mitzvah of Kiddush is the bracha, that's clear. And the shtia is secondary. However you learn, whether it's deraisa or derabanan, the shtiyas hayayin of the Kiddush is only secondary to the bracha. And one of the rises, if you don't have yain, you can also make Kiddush ala pas Friday night. So it shows that the Ikar bracha, the Ikar Kiddush is for sure the bracha, and you just need to be masmichet to a davar chashuv, either to yain or to pas. So that's by Kiddush. Mashenke and Dalakosas, we always understand it's Shtias Dalakosas. We have all the Ramozim, all the drushes, everything that you need Dalakosas. Like we saw also last time we talked about the Rashbam, Dal Lashon Shel Gula, and you have the Dal Lashonos. Each one is showing a deepening awareness of deepening of the actual Gula at 4 different levels, and the Yayin is like mosif to that. So like the Shtia, there's a whole parsha of Shtias Yayin of Dalakosas. So what's the shaykhus between the two? So he says he already heard from Reb Chaim, his father, that also had this kasha and tesis, that by Kiddush, the mitzvah is the bracha, and here is the Kiddush, the mitzvah of Shtia. It says, "Ochiach mizeh desfir leila tosis the gamba arba kosas ain't ikra mitzvah Shtia sakosas rakla bracha shalakosas." You're forced to say that in Tosas that's good for the pshat. Adrab, it's against what we have, our prior Havana. Tosas is telling us that according to all his rayas from the Gemaras, we see that the Iker by Dalakosas also is the bracha, not the Shtia. Avim mamish dugmas kiddush to kol hashana v'kol hakocha shel bracha akan v'rov. That it's mamish the same din. We say manishtana Dalakosas from every other night. You're right. There's no lo nishtana. It's all the same according to Tosas. And he brings also a raya from the Gra. It's a very geschmack raya from the Gra. The Gra holds like this halacha because the Gra in Reish Ayin Aleph in Hilchos Shabbos, the Shulchan Aruch there brings the machlokes whether the din of Malei Lugmav you need to drink by Kiddush, does it have to be drunk by one person or could it be drunk by many people? Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch says Reish Ayin Aleph Yadalid. So the Chiddush of the Shulchan Aruch is that the one who made Kiddush doesn't need to be himself the one to drink the Malei Lugmav. It could be one other person that drank it. So the stam halacha of the Shulchan Aruch is that the two people can't mitzaref to Malei Lugmav. That's the Shitas Arash, who holds that Malei Lugmav is a din of te'ima chashuva. That by koshel bracha, by Kiddush, you need a te'ima, but it's not enough a te'ima sheyesh b'hana. Yes, they really have hana from that te'ima, and the only way you really have hana from that is you drink at least a Malei Lugmav. So one person has to drink a Malei Lugmav for it to be a te'ima shel hana. Two, not mistaref. I can't have his hana be mistaref to my hana to make it into hana. So the first shita is, which is the rush, you need to have one person drink Malei Lugmav. V'yesh omrim dekeven shebein kulam tamu kamalei lugmav yatsu. The shtias kulam mistarefes l'shir. The Yesh Omrim holds no, there is a tzir of more than one, as long as it's not a din in tima chashuva, or it just has to be. It's on the coast that there was a tima of a Malei Lugmav of drinking enough to fill one side of your mouth. So there, the Gra explains these two shitas based on the Gemara we just learned in Kuf Ches. Gra says that that the first shita holds you need a shtia shesh b'hana, moshakasav Kuf Ches amabeis hu de'ashte v'chulei. Avagav the bnei beis shasu ashar. The Gra, as you know, always writes very bekitzer, extremely bekitzer. So you have to know the sugya, know the Rishonim, to have any idea what the Gra is saying. So the Gra says that we see from the Gemara Kuf Ches that when it says Hishka mehem levana v'levnei beiso, your yotzei, as long if you gave them all to drink, as long as hu deshasu ruba de kasa. Pashtus of the Gemara is the hu deshasi that he drank rov kos, which in that case the kos over there is talking about a kos of a revis, and rov revi is happens to be the same size as the same amount as a Malei Lugmav. So what the Gemara is saying, according to the Rush, exactly is that point that hu deshasi ruba de kasa. He's yotzei if he gave to everybody else to drink, as long as he himself drank rov kos, which would be Malei Lugmav. So that's the steamus of Gemara there in Kuf Ches. But the Gra says, "V'yesh omer misfir lehu who koi al kulam yachad." When it says "hu d'shasur kasa," doesn't mean who the person. It means who it is referring to the bigger who. That it is as long as rov kos was drunk. By who? Ben kulam, between all of them together. So the question is, what does the word Vahu mean in Kuchas Beis? Is Vahu going on the Makadesh, as long as he drank Rav Kos, or the one who drank it, whoever does drink it drinks Rav Kos, or Vahu is going on the overall din that we're talking about, that this halacha is as long as who it is when Rav Kos was drunk bein kulam, by them all together, which is the sheet of Tosas. That's Tosas sheet over there. And that's why Tosas holds it to his star, learning that shot in the Gemara. So the Gra, the way he's learning is, at least Liba Tosas, fits into what Tosas is saying by us in the Mishnah, that the Gemara in Kuches is not talking about Kiddush, it's talking about Dal Kosas. So the Gra is learning that the Manda Amar by Kiddush that holds that you can have a tziruf of everybody to drink to Mala Lugmav, your Yotzei, if everyone together drinks by Kiddush. If you hold that way by Kiddush, then you're going to interpret the Gemara that way also by Dalakosas and Kuches. Even though L'chor you could be Mechalik. What do you mean? Dalakosas is one thing, this is something else. But Tosas learns no, like Tosas is saying by us, that my Shna Kiddush Kiddush, Dalakosas and Kiddush are all the same din. The one is Motzi all, and the Iker is like the Brisker says, the Iker is the bracha. You're just Motzi everybody. The Shtia is only Tafel, it's secondary to the bracha. You're Motzi everybody in that. So whatever you hold by Kiddush, you're going to hold also over there. It's going to cause you to learn differently how you explain that Gemara by Dalakosas, as long as you hold they're all one din, and that's the sheet of Tosas. So the Brisker wants to go on to say that this whole shot is a major machlokas, and I know you all saw this already, but it's good to summarize it, make sure we're all on the same page. So the Brisker wants to say that it's Tosas l'shitasam, because there's a very elemental shaila in the din that you need to drink Mala Dugmav. What is the pshat in that din? By Kiddush, the din Mala Dugmav is not a din in the actual Shtiyas HaKos. It's a shear of Te'ima, like the Rush holds that it's a Tima Chashuva, a Tima Shesh Ba'ana. It's a way of tasting, or it's the Oifan HaTe'ima of that a Kosher Bracha, one of the dinim of Kosher Bracha needs Te'ima. So that's when you're using the Kosher Bracha for the Cheshivas of the Bracha. The Iker is really the Bracha. But for the Cheshivas of Bracha, you have a Kosher Bracha. And now that Kos, in order that it's either, if you don't taste it, you don't taste from that Kos, then it's a Shiloh, it's a Bracha L'Batala, or we'll talk that some other time. What happens if you don't taste from the Kos? Is it Bracha L'Batala or not? That's a Shiloh in Rishon and in Erev and the Sugya and Daf Mem. Al Kopanim, the din Mala Lugma by Kiddush clearly is a din in Te'ima Sakos. So Tosaf says, in Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph, Brisker brings down that the Gemara there is speaking about Kiddush, and it says, "Im Tom Mala Lugma Yatza." That's the Iker din Mala Lugma by Kiddush. So now Tosaf says in Daf Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph, "Im Tom Mala Lugma Yatza," who could have farish biyuma. He says the shear is if you put all the wine to one side and you fill up your cheek, that's called malugmav. And then he goes on to say, "V'nira shurov revis." The Tosas Machadesh that this shear malugmav is the same shear as a rove of a revis. What's his raya? And we know the kaman v'hu d'shasa v'hu d'kasa, because Gemara says in the next daf we just learned that your yotzei as long as you drink rove kos. So Tosas learns that the kos is learning the pashtus of a kos is a revis, the minimum shear that you need. And it says drink rov kos, and here it's saying Mala Lugmav must be that Mala Lugmav and rov kos are the same shear. That's what Tosas says. So the shaila is, what's Tosas Raya B'chlal? Kuv Zayin, that Tosas of Kuv Zayin is talking about Mala Lugmav, which is talking about in reference to Kiddush. The Gemara in Kuv Chesam Beis that says Huda Shasa Ruba de Kasa, if you drink Rov Kos, is talking about Dalad Kosas of Pesach. So what's Tosas bringing arrive one to the other? Aliyasi, the Tosas L'Shutasam, that learns by us that there's no chiluk between Dalakosas and Kiddush. Tosas is able to bring that raya. And then Tosas also, the Shutasam, Tosas themselves, and Kufchasam Beis on that Gemara that it says, as long as you drink Rov Kos, Yatzah. There Tosas says as well, and Kufchasam Beis, Dirmasko, Ruba de Casa, Ainuka Malay Lugmav. So what is Rov Kos? That is Malay Lugmav. Kedaprish Le'el, like I explained before. Meaning, referring back to the Tosas of Kuzayan, that I already compared Kiddush and Dalakosas, they're all the same din, and therefore, Rov Kos must be Malay Lugmav. So it's all one halacha. So it comes out that according to the Tosas, the din Rov Kos that it says in Kuchasam Beis is not midin ruba kakulo. It's not like there's a din in the kos to drink the whole kos. And you could say Rov hu d'shasa ruba kasa, you really should drink the whole thing, but like Kol Tzar Kula would say ruba kakuloi. So also over there, Rov Kos, you drink, it's ruba kakulo the kos. No shaychus to that at all. Rov Kos is the din malay lugma. It's not a din in the kos to drink the whole kos, that you have to drink the whole kos. It's a din in the tima, and the Shiur tima is a malay lugma, which happens to be Rov Kos, just like the din kiddush. That's the way Tosas learns. So that's the pshat in malay lugma, and Rov Kos is midin malay lugma, midin tima sakos, like the same din we have by kiddush. However, the Rambam, Briskura brings down that the Rambam says in Perek Zion, halacha tes of chametz and matzah, he speaks about dalakosas and what you have to drink it, how you have to drink it, etc. At the end, the Rambam says, Yushasa, he says you have to drink dalakosas. Yushasa mikol kos mehem ruboy yatsa. If you drink each kos rov, you're yotzei. Rambam B'chal does not mention over here the din of malay lugmav. That the Rambam says in Hilchos Shabbos and the din kiddush. In Perek Chavtes of Hilchos Shabbos, halacha, is it? It's over here. Second, halacha Zion. There in by Kiddush he says, "B'charkach mekadesh b'shosa malay lugmav, u'mashka l'chol b'nei chabura, b'charkach notel yodav, etc." So there in Hilchos Shabbos he says shosa malay lugmav, because that's by Kiddush as a din timas akos, like din kosher bracha. So there the Rambam does mention malay lugmav, but by Hilchos Pesach, by Dal Kosas, he doesn't mention malay lugmav. He just mentions you have to drink all 4 kosas. And if you drink Rov HaKos, Yatza. So you see that the Rambam is learning that the Rov Kos is not Midin Malay Lugmav. It's like Kiddush or Timus Kos. The Din Rov Kos is Hu D'Shasa Ruba D'Kasa, is really Midin Shtias Kola Kos. There's a Din Shtias Kos. Just if you drink Rov, it's like you drink the whole thing, but it's really a Din Shtias Kos. That's so we see that the Rambam is unlike Tosas. The Rambam holds like our original sfor that we had before Reb Chaim said his words. Ishtokel Torah, and that there's a din shtias hakos and rov kos yotze, and nafkamina la'alacha will be one big nafkamina la'alacha, and that's a shal and sfora. But if the shiur is the same shiur, so what's the nafkamina between Tosas and the Rambam? What will that be? So I mean, the obvious nafkamina is, can I be motzi everybody else on the table? Does everybody have to drink or not? That's where we started with. But even minei obey within the shtias hakos itself, nafkamina will be that the Beis Yosef, he brings down in Tafayim Beis, brings Shem the Ramban, that if you have a very large kos, then you have to drink rov of that kos. So bishlema, if you learn like the Rambam, if you hold like Tosas, you just have to drink a malay lugma. It doesn't matter how big the kos is. If you drink a malay lugma, you would say whether it's kiddush or dalakosas, you would say just malay lugma. It doesn't matter. You could have a huge kos, doesn't make a difference. But according to the Rambam, that it's a din, you have to din shtias arba kosas, that you're supposed to drink the whole kos. Just as a din, if you drink rov, it's like you drink the whole kos. Ruba kukuloi, then even if it's a kama revius, it's a very large kos, still you're gonna have to drink rov kos, according to the Rambam. That's what the Ramban says. So
what would the Rambam say with the smaller coat?
Sorry?
What would the Rambam say with a smaller coat? Like it holds the revius.
It has to be the minimum share would be a release.
I'm saying, but let's say he's a large person. He's like an Og Malach Habashim. Would he make the same difference?
Oh, very good. Very excellent. Yes, he mentions this here also that's another nafkamina between the two will be that if it's within Rov Kos and the shear of a Kos is a revis, so then this will actually be a kula in Pesach over Kiddush. This will come out to be a kula if you learn like the Rambam. Then what's it in Og Melech Habashim? We go by the Mother Lugmav today. So if Og Melech Habashim, his Mother Lugmav is a gallon, so then he'll have to drink a whole gallon, being Kiddush, being Medal Kosas, according to Tosas. So you're going to have a very large kos to be yotzei if you need a Mother Lugmav to be yotzei. But and you'll need that bein b'kiddush, bein b'dal kosas. But according to the Rambam, they'll come out of kula then. It's very good. It's a kula that since dal kosas is not midin Mother Lugmav, it's not midin te'ima, it's just midin rov kos and chazal or kaveh, the size of a kos, the amount that it needs to be is a revis, because ain't shtia pachas and revis is din shtia. Even Og Melech Habashim, if he drinks a revis, it was a shtia. It just wasn't a timus mal lugma. It was still considered a shtia. So all you'll need will be rov kos of revis, even from Og Melech Habashim. So the Rambam and Dal Kos will come out of kula over kiddush. Interesting thing. I heard once a Meister, the Stipler went to a simcha, and they had him lead the benching. There was a huge kos. They gave him like some really huge kosos. So he held it up like really, really high. And so after he was done, they said, Rebbe, doesn't it say you have to hold it up a tefach? So he said, if this is a revius, that's a tefach. Okay, so anyways, so that's the gist of the Brisker Rav in the Machlokas Tosas and the Rambam. And our Tosas is going to be holding the tzad of that the Iker is really the bracha. It's after this whole Shlomo Torah, it's like bothering me to one extent that according to Tosas, that the shtia should be so not important by Dalakosas. But I'll just tell you something. I mentioned to whoever has time to take a look in the Rambam Komos. There's a sugya. It's a totally different sugya, and we're not maybe if we finish all the Kiddush stuff before Pesach, that we can learn some of the sugyas of the Seder if we get there. But in Kuf Chesed Amud Aleph, in the sugya of Haseba, so over there's a shaila of which of the kosas do you need to do Haseba by? You need by Dal kosas. Which of the two? It's really you need two of them. You need either the first two because you're like starting the cheres. Once you already have the cheres, you don't need it anymore. But you're starting the cheres, you need it. Or the second two, because the first two you weren't yet becheres, but after the second two you already finished the agada, you're already becheres. That's what you should do. So the Gemara comes on those kind of says we're not sure. So we should do Haseba by all four. That's the Moskanos of Gemara. Do by all four. There's a famous Ran asked a question. We're not going to go into Ran asked a question that why don't you say Safar Draban on the Kula? We're not sure to say Safar Draban. So the Ran says you don't say Safar Draban on the Kula when that Kula is going to be okra the whole din completely. So in this case, if you say Safar on the Kula, you won't do Seba at all. First two will say maybe it's the second two. Second two maybe it's the first two. You won't do it at all. You're okra the whole din. By that you don't say Safar Draban on the Kula. Side point. But Tosas, you saw the Tosas over there. Tosas on that Gemara that says that since we're not sure, some say this way, some say that way, we're not sure, therefore you should do a seva by all four. So Tosas says a chiddush, the chor you're saying a chiddush. Tosas wouldn't just say it for nothing. The whole daled kosas strichim haseba b'shas tia. All daled kosas need to do a seva when you drink. So the obvious question is that what's the chiddush? The Gemara just said that. That's exactly what the Gemara just said. Since we don't know, some say this way, some say that way. Therefore, we do it by all four. So it comes Tosas and says a tremendous chiddush. Whole daled kosas strichim haseba b'shas tia. It's exactly what the Gemara just said. What is Tosfos saying, B'chlal? So many years ago, I thought the shot would be that there's a dilemma, sort of a dilemma, that according to Tosfos, the Tosfos holds that the ikar is the bracha. So when exactly do you do a seba? It's like pasnish to do a seba. It's not proper to do when you make the bracha. You're going to do a seba on the bracha. That's the ikar. Like how could that be? So Tosfos is adding in over here that even though I hold the ikar is the bracha and the shtia is secondary, still I kama there's a din haseba, there's a din to show derech cheres. It's clear that the cheres can only be shown through something which brings out cheres, which is shtias hayayin. Not the bracha. There's no cheres by leaning in a bracha. That's what Tosfos did say a chiddush here. Tosfos says, "Chol dal kosas sricham haseba b'shash shtia." Letting us know that don't make a mistake and think that since I already told you that the ikar of dal kosas is the bracha and not the shtia, maybe you should think that the haseba should be b'shas bracha. Kamash Malan, no. That the haseba has to go. What is a seba? It's showing that people eat and drink the haseba. That's the way you show cheres. So even though the drinking is secondary to the kos shel bracha, the bracha shabo, still the din haseba can only be miskayim through shashtia. So what Tosfos is adding to the Gemara just said you have to do a seva by all four kosas. Tosfos says when b'shashtia is adding in those words.
But wouldn't that be an issue because the rest of the people at the table don't have to drink according to Tosfos? So then, how would they be mekayim? How would they be mekayim the mitzvah? So according to Tosfos, the whole concept of shtias daled kosas is shver then.
Yeah. So
this is the answer, but it's really a shverkeit because it seems like the mitzvah daled kosas is not. It's almost like a kiddush Friday night, that it just has to be done by somebody, but not that everybody has a chiyuv in daled kosas. It's almost being open the whole thing.
He's motzi them in a kiddush that has a haseba to it, and that way they all feel like bnei kohen or something like that. That's gonna.
How is it liikuva then? The Tosfos goes on to say that if you didn't do the haseba, then you have to do it again. But you're yotzei the mitzvah already. So why? What's even is like? When he says tzarafiyan afterwards, how could that be? If the main part of the bracha, so you weren't yotzei haseba, but that's not. Like what's the? You have to go back to say another bracha because of haseba. There's like a separate mitzvah you have to go back for. Or
yeah,
like,
that's what some explain according to Tosfos is that not that you're not yotzei the daled kosas, you're not yotzei haseba. So and you might have to drink it again to be yotzei mitzvah haseba.
But if haseba's, there's not a separate mitzvah haseba on even like the point of Tosfos. There's a separate mitzvah haseba on matzah and on the kiddush, and like they were masaking different mitzvahs of haseba.
Yeah, so that's a different bris grove, and also chametz matzah, which we're not learning right now. But if you want to take a look, there's a beautiful bris grove. Like to me, that bris grove, like it's not a seder. It's not a seder. So basically, without that bris grove, but is a seba a din in the etzem achilas matzah b'shtias daled kosas that, or is it a separate din, a separate mitzvah? Which he wants to say that those Rishonim that say that there's a hitter of haseba during the whole suda. We see that it's a separate mitzvah, just that they were koveya it on daled kosas and matzah, but you can continue to be mekayim it through the rest of the suda as well, because it's really a separate mitzvah of haseba. There's a separate mitzvah of show cheres through haseba.
I'm asking that if Tosfos is saying that the main mitzvah of kiddush, right, of the daled kosas is the bracha. So how could it even be like? How can we have you go back? Would we say you wouldn't say another bracha? Is that what Tosfos is saying? Like you would just bring
It sounds so. It's not so question if you would make another bracha or you just drink again to be yotzei haseba. It's not so question. Just holds about that. The rush. I mean, we're not learning the sugya of Haven. I don't want to get too to it. I mean, there's a rush over there that does indicate that it's ma'akiv and the etzem daled kosas. The daled kosas are only yotzei through actual haseba. So that was
some kind of ikuva on the bracha that you made, which is the ikar. You have to say, no? that the Seba is the bracha is the ikr, but somehow the Seba ties into that.
The Haseba is that's what I'm saying, that according to Tosas, that the shtia is secondary, then you'll have to say that they're just koveat on the shtia, that to be Yosef Mitzvah Haseba, which is pastas, a separate mitzvah according to Tosas, will have to be b'shas dalakosas, which that's the shiloh, whether you have to drink kosas again. If you weren't Yosef Mitzvah Haseba, you have to drink again kosas to be Yosef that mitzvah. But I am Babriskarov, and I think that's the only other one in Chametz Matzah, so you can't miss it. Pretty sure. That's really a side point. I just want to bring out that Tosas is saying a chiddush over here. Okay, getting back to now. Okay, I'll just add one last nakuda on that. That being said, a comment that we see that there's a din of haseba to the yain, it shows that even if you hold like Tosas, even Tosas does hold that the shtiyas totally secondary to the bracha, still there are certain dinim in that shtiya, like they were misakin, they were samach in some way the haseba to it. So there is something more to the shtiya than just the shtiya of kiddush that's mamish just midin tim as a kos, that it shouldn't be a bracha of atala. So there is something more to it over here. And so perhaps, even according to Tosas, what we said last time with the Dal Lashon Shel Gula, and they said to do a Dal Kos Shel Yain, the Yain brings you, like what Shlomo Zalman said, a deeper and deeper awareness of, like Yain brings you deeper into, the more you drink, the deeper you get into it. It's supposed to achila, that you get more filled up and more out of it. So they dafkur misakin Dal Kos Shel Yain and not Dalad Kazesim Shel Matzah, let's say. So even according to Tosas, perhaps you could still understand that there is something more just to the yain than just mamish, just kiddush. Even though ikra din, you could still be motzi somebody, but the yain that you do drink has something a little bit more to it because haseba is attached to it as well. Just a ha'ara. Okay. I just wanted to say one more thing. In the beginning of the Gemara, hopefully we're able to start the Gemara a little bit. We'll give Marm comments for that for next week. That's a major, beautiful sugya from the beginning of the Gemara to the end of, or the very top of Kuf Hamid Beis. It's really tied together with a few other sugyas as we go through Arbi Psachim. In the Gemara in the beginning, as the Shaila, my iri Arbi Psachim, Afila Arbi Shabbos Yom Tov Nami. Why only Erev Pesach can you not eat Samach Mincha? What about Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov? The Tanya lo yochal adam ba'arbi Shabbos Yom Tovim. Sorry, min Mincha l'mayla kadeshi kanos Shabbos kashu taiva. If Rabbi Yehuda holds that there's a din every Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov not to eat. Once you got to min Mincha l'mayla, you should come into Suda Shabbos kashu taiva. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi holds taka, you're allowed to Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. So, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, so it's really the kasha is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why do we only learn this Mishnah by Erev Pesach? It should also be by Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. So you have two terutzim in the Gemara. We're not going to go into, I'm just going to stick with Rahuna, which is going to be the Maskana as well. Rahuna says, Lo tzricha ela Rabbi Yossi, damar ochel holach. We only need this Mishnah really, and Hanami, according to Rabbi Yossi. The Rabbi Yossi holds that you're allowed to and to tell us that that's only by Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov you're allowed to eat up until nightfall. Because Erev Pesach, there's a chiyuv matzah, Rabbi Yossi's modeh that you should not eat up until Shabbos. That's Rabbi Yossi. That's Rahuna Chiddush according to Rabbi Yossi. The Erev Pesach is different. Says Rashbam, why is it different, Erev Pesach? Because of the chiyuv de matzah, like the Rashbam, shlote necheles ala soba. You shouldn't eat the matzah when you're already full. You should eat it with taiva, with geschmack. And so the Rashbam could have ended right there. That would have been sufficient for me to understand what's going on. But the Rashbam goes on and says, the chiyuv the matzah laila harishon chova b'chsiv be'erev toklu matzos. The chiyuv of eating matzah the first night is the chiyuv because it says erev toklu matzos. So shkoya, like without this Rashbam, I didn't know there's a chiyuv of eating matzah erev Pesach, the night of Pesach. I need this Rashbam to tell me that. So it seems completely, totally redundant for the Rashbam to tell me that. Obviously, when the Gemara says Shulchiv the matzah, we learned Chumash once, and we know that there's a chiyuv matzah that night. That's what we're about to do that night. What's Rashbam Chal saying? So I think that Rashbam is actually saying something very deep, and with this, what the Rashbam is saying is he's explaining the din of the Gemara. That one might ask a kasha that the chiyuv of Suda Shabbos is not a chiyuv. Eating Suda Shabbos is not a chayva. We know that we have to eat Gimel Sudas on Shabbos. The night, the Suda Shabbos night, there's those who hold a deraisa, or even a Rabbanan, Medivir Kabbalah. It's a chiyuv gomer to eat Shalosh Sudas on Shabbos. So again, manishtana halayla hazeh, we call it so here it's a chiyuv matzah, and there it's a chiyuv of Suda Shabbos. So why would Yossi be mechalik and hold that only by matzah you have to be nizhar not to eat it b'taiva and not Suda Shabbos?
Isn't matzah more summer than Shabbos? Shabbos is like an asmachta, like a oneg.
Like, fine, so but it's still a chiyuv. So like, why would I not have to be for wherever we know that chiyuv from? So why would that minimize the importance of doing it geshmak? Like we're having to have it, but kashu taiva to eat it, to eat it. Like the Rashbam said already before in the Mishnah that it's a hitter mitzvah.
So when's the mitzvah d'oraisa? That's a
okay. Maybe I mean the Rashbam already said in the Mishnah lo yachal adam. So there shouldn't be hit a mitzvah on Shabbos. I'm not worried about that on Shabbos. It's also a mitzvah. Why not? So I think the Rashbam is being rambus to us in his lashon. The beautiful thing that we spoke about this a little bit in the last month. Those that were there in the chiluk between the shaila about achilas. Kazayas Rishon on the night of Pesach and matzah is at the same chiyuv or a different chiyuv. Some said that the Kazayas Rishon, the chiyuv achilas matzah is perhaps somehow that the Kazayas Rishon, even though there's a hekesh between Pesach and Sukkot the first night, Tesvav. So we spoke about this last month. We spoke about a machlokas, a Rishonim and Achronim, whether that the chiyuv of Kazayas Rishon on Leil Pesach is just like matzah, that's a mamash of maisa, chiyuv maisa achila, or it's just a chetimtza in order to be mekayim. It's a chiyuv to be mekayim that night. B'sukkos teishu shivas yomim, and the achila is only chetimtza in order to have a yeshiva of sukkah b'derech chiyuv. So it's a chiyuv to bring yourself l'dei chiyuv. To be considered Yoshe B'Sukkah Aydi Achila. Sometimes there's a chiyuv of a Maisa Achila, like Achilas Karbonos, and Achilas Matzah is in that getter, or sometimes the Achila is not a chiyuv of a Maisa Achila, it's just through the Achila, Mamela, you're Mekayim something, it's a Timson and Mekayim something else, like Sukkah in that case. So we can clear a shaila that the achilas suda on Shabbos is it a chiyuv of maisa achila? You're supposed to eat a kazayas on Shabbos, or is it pshat that the chiyuv is onik Shabbos, or on Yom Tov it's a chiyuv simchas Yom Tov? How are you mekayim that onik Shabbos? By being mu'unag, by being eating to the point that you are not hungry. So then the Shabbos you have onig on Shabbos. The chiyuv is not a chiyuv of achila, it's maisa achila. But it's a chiyuv of oneg. It's a secondary thing. The chila is hechatimsa in order to have oneg Shabbos by Shabbos. So that's what Rashbam is coming to tell us.
Is that the mitzvah of Suda Shabbos, is to be oneg Shabbos, or like oneg Shabbos like by meat and wine?
No, oneg Shabbos. The Suda Shabbos, that's the Iker oneg Shabbos. The Gimel Suda is oneg Shabbos.
Can't you fulfill the mitzvah of oneg Shabbos through other means?
So Chazal were kaveya that the minimum of in economy that's mostly on it, but the minimum is to have Gimel Sudas. So what I was thinking was that that's what the Rashbam is coming to say. He's coming to say that here there's a chiyuv matzah. In other words, like, we'll take a step back. That does that achila need to be a ma'aseh achila that's done often shel te'avon, ratzon b'te'avon? So it depends. If the chiyuv is a ma'aseh achila, so then the mitzvah is to eat. Then the ma'aseh achila needs to be in a way that's mehuder and geshmak. But if the ma'aseh achila is only a secondary thing, it's only hechatimsa to have oneg Shabbos, so then mechatesi that the achila itself has to be geshmak. It's just maybe you already ate something before, it'll be geshmak anyway. If you eat something, you're yotze the mitzvah, but sof kol sof you have oneg Shabbos because you're not hungry anymore. So if there's no chiyuv, if the chiyuv is not inside the ma'aseh achila, then it's much less mistaber that there's a din to have to do that achila often shal taiva like in a more mehuderdik way, because it's only secondary, it's only chatimsa or something greater. So that's the Rashbam has been rambas to us when he says mishum chiyuv de matzah shelo techelas alasova. The chiyuv de matzah laila harishon chova desi be'erev tochel matzos. It's a chiyuv. You should know that it's a chiyuv achilas matzah, and that's why Rabbi Yossi is mechalik between Shabbos and Leil Pesach. By Leil Shabbos he says holach ochel ad zetechshach, because there's no chiyuv of eating it kashu taiva. If you're already full, so eat. Okay, you're yotzei, but there's no the etza ma'aseh there's no din to do it. Both in there's more mehuder. Mashenkin here it's a chova shenemar be'erev tochel matzos. It's a din on the ma'aseh achila, and therefore it has to be both in that it's mehuder. That's what I was thinking. And Baruch Hashem, I found afterwards. Now listen to the lashon of the Ran. The Chidushei Ran says, listen to this word. Listen to these words. Aval hacha mishum matzah moda v'afal gav the mitzvahs oneg Shabbos nami deraisahu. The Ran shita is that oneg Shabbos is also deraisa. So what's the chiluk? So he's asking our kasha. Why shouldn't there be a din oneg according to Yehuda? Why should there be a din to eat it b'te'avon according to Yossi? So he says, Hasan lo pakte rachmana achila behedya. Ela the kaddish is Shabbos la'angoy. There the Torah never was mitzavi you to hedya to do a ma'aseh achila just to have oneg Shabbos. If you're not going to have oneg through achila because you already have oneg because you're already full, then you have no chiyuv to be eating midraisa anymore. You already have oneg Shabbos. And also in the Chidushei Rabbeinu David, for those who haven't seen it, this is like the most, it's known as like the most Kishmaka Rishon. It's like he speaks out all the yeshiva shalomdas, and it's a Rishon. It's like it's unbelievable. Hey, a lot of yeshiva shakiras and everything. Imam speaks out. I often wonder, was it really written by Rishon? I sort of came on the scene. Rabbeinu David was a known Rishon. It's the Ran in Sanhedrin often quotes his Rebbe Rabbeinu David, and the Magia over here has Akdama say it's the same Rabbeinu David, but he always speaks out. You say Alon Shakira Shtakol Torah and everything, and all of a sudden you open Rabbeinu David, and there it all is. It's right there. So listen to these words. He says, here, because the Chiyuv Matzah, Rabbi Yossi's Moda, that there's a din to eat a b'te'avon. So he says, L'fi ma shepirashnu b'Mishnah, ma shachashishu mishum matzah hu shelo yehei la'achla achila gasa, well yatsa b'yedei chavasa. We already explained in the Mishnah there's a problem spoke last time before, that there's a problem of achila gasa not to be full when you eat it, otherwise you won't be yotzei. Since Rabbi Yossi is motive for that din, that if it's achila gasa, then you're not yotzei, then why would it be cholak over here? Why would it say an Erev Shabbos Yom Tov is different? Since it's a mitzvah to eat Suda Shabbos, I'm sure you're not going to be yotzei if you're so full that you don't want to eat anymore. It's a chilagasa. So listen to these words. He says, Islan lememar. So you can answer, Shaf al piken in Sudas Shabbos Yom Tov dom lamatzah. Sudas and Shabbos Yom Tov are not the same as matzah. Shachilas matzah kavu alav chova al kopanim. There's a chiyuv achilas matzah, no matter what. You know you hey yachol lachol el achila gasa lo yebi yoda lekayim mitzvah matzah b'shana zu klal she mitzvah overis. You're not going to be able to yotzei mitzvah achilas matzah at all. Aval suda Shabbos Yom Tov enu chay behem el kedei lekayim onig Shabbos Yom Tov. It's not a chiyuv achila Shabbos Yom Tov. It's a chiyuv to bring yourself to onig Shabbos and onig Yom Tov. If you're not getting hana from this achila because you already are full, then you have no chiyuv because you already have onig Shabbos. The chiyuvs are the onig Shabbos. The achila is secondary to that. So it's mamash.
You think that you have oneg then?
So you already well he says it. The Ran says it that you're already mu'unag. He says it that you're not going to get any oneg through eating this, so you're not makayim anything. So, but what about oneg Shabbos? So you have to say that, of course, like the Ran, that you already that you have oneg in the fact that you're not hungry. So they already.
How does Rabbi understand that misvara though? Like if I'm full coming into Shabbos, how is that considered oneg Shabbos though?
Because you're already mu'unag. You're already like you're enjoying Shabbos because like I'm coming in and I feel good. You know, I feel good in Shabbos. I feel I'm not hungry, so I feel good.
So can you be yotzei drinking a gallon of water which fills you up also? We wouldn't call that oneg Shabbos, would we? I mean, just misfara. I was actually thinking maybe like misfara, we could say like. I don't understand why that chiluk makes a difference. Meaning, okay, so you have different mitzvah, but there's a certain oneg of eating of the actual. Otherwise, it was why do we have to like have like the fancy fish and the meat? Like just fill yourself up. Have a good tuna sandwich also. Because if it's, I never thought it was a din in being full. I thought it was a din in actually enjoying.
Well, and for sure you're saying it's true, but he's just saying that right now at this point, since the time of the achila is for oneg, right now you're not going to have any oneg, so there's no chiyuv.
Right. So I would say that would be more of a meaning you're erasing your possibility of your whatever you're being over on a mitzvah say of oneg or whatever the mitzvah is. You ruin that mitzvah. So I would say that would be as far as you should wait, or Shabbos.
Yeah, so they're coming out fuki that. So that's why the Choy have to say something like the Ran. What's the lesson of the Ran? And he says also, if you're not misanig for nechila, there's no chiyuv. There's no chiyuv. In other words, I guess the actual words that they're saying, it could be that I'm adding into the word you're already mu'unag. If you look back, they don't really say those exact words. They just say that the way they're saying is like this, that what they do say explicitly is that the Torah is mitzabe you to do an actual achila by matzah. Full, not full, whatever, you have a achilas matzah. So if you can't eat it, or if the achila you eat, it would be not have a din achila, like the Gemara says in Yuma that if you're mamish you're pater and Yom Kippur, if you would, it's a achila gasa because it's not considered an achila, it's considered a ma'isa mazik, not a ma'isa achila. So if you're so full that you're not doing a ma'isa achila, you need the matzah, you're mevatel mitzvahs achilas matzah. Now she'enkin by over here, you're not mevatel a mitzvah because over there is a chiyuv and you're mevatel. Over here, if you're not going to get onig by eating, you're not mevatel anything because you don't have a chiyuv. There's no chiyuv on you right now because there's no way to eat and get oneg. So since the chiyuv is only to bring to oneg, then you have no chiyuv on you. That's
it's not considered being mevatel at the event.
It's not mevatel because you don't have a chiyuv. because the chiyuv would be to bring yourself to oneg through it, and since it wouldn't, so there's no chiyuv. That's the way they say it. I was adding words that maybe
I'm happy. It's just hard to hear me swear because like if you're saying that's the reason that they don't need to wait to eat Erev Shabbos, is you should make yourself have the chiyuv of oneg. That was, as the Rebbe said that something like that before, that you should cause yourself to have the chiyuv, or they were masaking oneg on achila.
We have to leave it. We have to keep it in context over here. That Rabbi Yossi didn't say it's fine to be mevatel your chiyuv oneg. It's a question over here: is there a gzera that you might come to that? So Rabbi Yossi holds that you're allowed to eat if you want to eat something, you're allowed to eat up until Shabbos, because obviously he wants to mekayim to the Shabbos and everything. The shaila is: are we worried that he might eat so much that he won't be able to mekayim on Shabbos? So Rabbi Yossi held that we're not gozer that, because even if it would happen on the tzad that it would happen, we're not trying to do that. And of course, you want to eat the geshmaka, gefilte fish, and everything, and all the oneg you should get. But are we going to make a gzera that you're not allowed to eat because you might come to be full and not eat with that geshmak? So the Rabbi Yossi held that we're not gozer that, because even on the tzad you're not going to be mevatel a mitzvah. Of course, you should get that mitzvah, but it's not considered a bittul mitzvah. Mashenke matzah, it'll be a bittul mitzvah say, because there it's a din achila, not just to have oneg. So the fact that you don't want to eat is not a ptur, it'll be a bittul. That's the chiluk. That's why there is room for a gzeira by Pesach. Yossi is motive to that, even though he's cholik by Shabbos. So I think that's what the Rashbam is saying. The Rashbam is hinting to this whole thing by saying that the chilo la'alushon chova shenemar b'erev tochlu matzos. It's a mitzvah. He's telling us the pasuk to remind us that matzah is not just to be full of matzah. It's a chiyuv to eat matzah, and therefore there's a makom for a gzera. That's what Rashbam is saying.
Why does the Rashbam call it a hiddur mitzvah taka in the Mishnah, and then over here he's saying, according to Rabbi, that's a chiyuv? Rabbi made that the that
because here he's explaining the Gemara that says Mishu chiyuv de matzah moda. So he has to explain what's the chiyuv, like the Rishonim ask.
Well, that's why Rabbi Huda would say.
Right. So here Rabbi Yossi is moda Mishu chiyuv de matzah. So Shabbos is not a chiyuv. So Rashbam is already answering this kasha by saying chovahi shenemar b'erev tochlu matzos. Here the chiyuv is not oneg. Here it's achila, and so he's really saying the whole shtickle Torah of the Ben David and the Ran by the way he's quoting the pasuk. That's what I think. Hopefully,
I have to watch the replay again.
Okay. All right. So now we should make sure not to eat too much before Shabbos. It's still okay now, but make sure we're all hungry tonight. Okay. Have a good Shabbos, and we'll go back to the sugya next week.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Thank you very much.
Shabbos. Take care.